With everyone talking about the stresses of day-to-day living at the moment, with all the economy in the news all the time, and also a thing called mortgage stress, I thought, who's the best person to ask about handling stress and what sort of things you can do to help cope with things and all that? And I thought of our resident neighbourhood psychologist, Carlos Camacho, and I'm glad to say he's on the phone. G'day, Carlos.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Hey, did you have a nice Easter?
Yeah, it's been great. How was yours?
Yeah, can't complain. No good. I mean, all good. I mean, except I've had too many chocolates. I think I'm going to have to go back on a diet.
Well, you know, chocolate is actually quite good for a certain amount. It does something to our brain that a lot of other things that we enjoy as well do. So it releases certain chemicals that makes us feel great. But too much, then it's like anything else, my friend.
Yeah, I guess I suppose you've got to reward yourself every now and then too, don't you? You know,
100%. Yeah, I think because or else you're just striving to do things and you think, well, why am I doing these things? But when you reward yourself and you give yourself that satisfaction, then it just gives you a bit more motivation to keep going.
Yeah, true. Stress. Now, everyone suffers from it, I guess, at some stage of their life or, you know, whatever. Are there certain things we as human beings can do to sort of like cope with it, or is it something you've just, I know it'd be an individual thing too, and the types of stress that people are going through would be different, but is there a certain sort of thing that you recommend people do or people can do?
Yes, you're right. Everyone suffers from stress. It's almost impossible not to, especially in the modern world, the pace of the modern world and so forth. And it's one of those things that it has no benefit whatsoever, stress. The beauty about stress that we do have some control over it. So there are external stresses that we can't avoid those. For example, you might be in a hurry to get to work or to catch a plane and you get 2 or 3 red lights in a row. You can't control that. Sometimes you're sure someone's pressing the button again, here comes Carlos, I'm going to give him a red light. And so you start feeling that the world's against you. And so, but you have to keep it rational. So those external events, we can't control them all. But we can manage the way we feel about it. So stress is one of those things that we have a certain amount of control, but as long as we know how it works, that external things are going to stress us, and now we have to be able to implement a strategy in order for them to not to affect us as much. So that's what we try to teach people. So definitely it is an individual thing. Some people are naturally better at it, and they're just more laid back. But the ones that stress out a bit more, you'll find that it's a double-edged sword, because you probably find that those type of people also get a lot of things done, and they preempt issues as well. So I think it's about finding that midpoint where you don't stress about the things you can't change, but you also have the vision to be able to plan for things when they happen.
Yeah, I get you what you mean there. Like, I know people that worry about everything that's going on overseas or something like that, things that they can't do a single thing about, but they stress all about it and everything. And, you know, is that just the way they're wired or something, or? Yeah,
I think they just haven't been taught the right technique. It's a bit like when you play sport, you know, or you try to hit a golf ball. Once you learn the right technique, it just becomes a lot easier when you kick a ball, or if you play tennis. There's a certain way of doing things right. So when we get up in the morning till we go to sleep, I mean, that's our life. The rest, you know, when we sleep, that's our life as well, but we're not conscious. So a lot of things happen in between the time that we wake up and go to bed. Some good things, some bad things. Most of the things are neutral, you know. They're not really good or bad. We that's just a human construct. We decide, oh, that's a bad thing. I got 3 red lights. But you can say, oh, I've got 3 red lights. Next time I'll leave a little bit earlier. So you plan for the future. But for the moment, you're already thinking, okay, I'm going to continue going at the pace I'm going. If I don't make it to work or catch the plane, what's the worst that can happen? So it might just mean that you have to reschedule, or you might have to talk to your boss and make sure that they know that something happened and it won't happen again and so forth. So But there's no real need to stress for in that moment. It's the present that we stress. And so if we can grasp that and have a plan and a certain type of philosophy. So those people, they just don't have the technique to look at what's happening and decide to think about it in a philosophical way. So they just get absorbed by it and they're stressed.
So in a way, it's like forward planning, isn't it?
It is. In a way, you need to have a way of looking at things, and that's how a lot of people do things. We do that every day, all of us. In some of us, for example, if you're a psychologist or if you're a radio announcer, I mean, you already have the experience when you go in. This happens, or what I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to put this type of music goes great with that. So you've already got that experience. So you're already planning in the future. Someone that goes in there without that, they will stress because they're thinking, oh, got to get this right. So that experience gives us, whether you're a bricklayer or a teacher, that gives us a certain amount of comfort and leeway for sure. But that comes with a plan of saying, okay, this is where I'm going in my life. This is where I want to be, but I'm going to give myself a bit of a break if things don't work out to start off with.
You not punish yourself so much, sort of thing.
That's right, and that's right. That's exactly right. You've got to plan in a way for those little failures. You've got to budget them in to your plan, or else we're setting ourselves up for failure. Hoping, because it's only hoping that everything works out perfect. It never does, of course. Nothing does, because we're in an imperfect world.
So with this new terminology, mortgage stress, like that's something you've got no control over, I suppose, is it? Or can you control it by having a think about it and working out your budgets a bit better or something like that to try and get through?
Yeah, that's a big one, and we're all experiencing a bit of that at the moment. And it all comes down to that initial decision. We always have to plan for the future. So 5 years ago, you decided to buy a house and you're working, and you also have to plan for when times do change. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, did not do that. So things were well then. They might have lost their job, or no one was expecting the last 3 years, everything that's happened. So it was impossible to budget, to plan and budget for that. But I think with regards to money, it's black and white. You need a certain amount because it's mathematical. If you don't have it, then you can't invent it. It's basically 1 + 1 = 2. So you need to have that income all the time. So to start off with, I think people have to get into the debt that they can afford, even in the medium to long-term future, because then there's going to be less stress. Now, if those people are already in that situation because they made a decision that in a way the situation changed, so therefore the decision seemed not to be a good one now, but in hindsight we're all geniuses. Well, now they're in the situation where they have to be able to, with a clear head, decide, okay, because it's mathematics, it's easy. Okay, this is how much I need, this is how much I need to come in order to pay. If that can't happen in any way, then people are going to have to make a difficult decision with regards to what they're going to do. But there's a lot of options today with the banks and so forth for people to talk to financial managers, and there's a lot of leeway to allow people to be able to have a little bit of breathing space. So it's once you get the mathematics done, then the psychology comes in and how we're going to feel about it. So once you get the mathematics and all the budget right, okay, this is how much I'm getting in, this is how much I'm paying for that, this is how much I'm putting away for electricity, because you need to do those things, because when they come, they're not as stressful. Once you do that, then you also continue to work on yourself. Well, okay, that's fine, but I still need to get up at a certain time. I need to do a certain amount of exercise. I need to choose food well, what I'm going to eat, and how much I'm going to sleep. Because those three things, eating, sleeping, and exercising, they need to be done all the time, regardless whether you have mortgage stress or not, because that's the foundation
of looking after yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right too. If the main thing too is to actually speak to your bank or your building society or whatever it is that you've got the money from if you are having troubles, rather than just trying to keep it quiet or trying to manage it sort of thing on your own, because in actual fact they could help you, couldn't they?
Yeah, yes. I speak to a lot of some of my patients who are going through things, certain difficulties, and it's a little bit new for us in Australia too. A lot of people in third world countries for decades they just learn how to budget. In a lot of third world countries, for example, people might have a certain amount of debt. They get paid monthly, and usually people get a month wage that lasts 3 weeks.
Wow, yeah.
That's how it is, and the last week is always difficult.
Yeah.
And so, but people get by because they have the experience of learning how to budget, how they buy certain things that are on a special at a certain time, and they just don't live day to day. They actually do the plan for the whole month and maybe even for the year of what they're going to do. So, and they decide early on in the year whether they're going to have a holiday or not, and so forth, or else it becomes very, very stressful. So it's quite new for us in Australia, luckily, and we're still in a very good situation, of course, compared to other countries. But people got to realise that there's many, many ways out of it. One of them is in your own head. Stay clear-headed, clear-minded, don't panic. Follow the procedure of talking to people, like you said. Tackle it straight on. Be open about it.
Yeah.
Go to the bank. Talk to your family members, the people that are in the house. Say, okay, this is the situation we're in. And in the end, it's not a life or death situation. These things always, one way or another, can be resolved. That's the thing. Either you can pay the mortgage or you can't. Either way, it's not a life death or life situation. But no one goes into buying a house and paying a mortgage in order to 5 years later having to sell it. Of course, that's a terrible thing to happen. It's important to make sure that you cover yourself to start off with. Be open about it, and you'll find that once you start doing that, opportunities arise. And then little things start happening.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Are there people too that like, you know how you see some people, they look like they haven't got a care in the world and they just sort of go about things. If they're late for something, they really don't care, and yet there's other people that are watching the clock all the time. Is that just the individual person's personality?
Yes, we do have our individual personalities, and some people are just more laid back. I mean, you see it with coaches a lot in sport. One of them throwing things there inside, the other one's just looking, because they already go into they have an approach already. See, they have a philosophy of winning and losing. So some of them expect perfection, so those expectations aren't met, and you get frustrated. Others realize that there's going to be failures, and it's a good opportunity to work on it. Now, depending on the people you're working with, one works well and the other one may not, depending. So it's not that one's better than the other. Sometimes people need a bit of pressure and know that their boss expects a certain quality, and so it's a very fine thing. But it's definitely a personality thing, an individual thing, and I would tell people to just go with their default setting, whatever that may be, because if you're the type of person that needs that release, you need to have that release in an appropriate way, of course. And so more physical exercise, get a punching bag, those type of things, they're fantastic, Then you have a nice hot shower, and you sit down. Once you get it out of your system, now you can start reflecting. And for the other person, it's more an introspective thing, but they also need to react sometimes, because we all, in one way or another, have to be able to react to a situation. So it just depends what's better for each person and what comes naturally.
Good on you. Once again, always nice talking to you, Carlos. So you put it down in simple terms, and I like that. We all understand.
Well, yeah, as we said, there's enough complication already in the world. We need to simplify. And look, everyone's in a difficult. Anyone that is in a difficult situation will find it hard as well, just with words to get any satisfaction. But what we say in psychology is that what you need to do now is really have a plan. Because when you wake up in the morning and you have that plan written down, literally what you're going to do, how much you're going to budget, have envelopes for money for this, everyone's on the same boat. Everyone knows that, look, this is our budget for this. Things start becoming a little bit less stressful, but you have to be on the same boat at home, and you have to get information from all the right people. And then, of course, if there's still a lot of stress and maybe other symptoms, for sure, talk to your GP. Maybe you can talk to a counsellor, psychologist, and just take care of that other part. Because if we tackle life, whatever it may be, in a calm manner, things just work out a little bit better because you have more space to think.
True. I like the way you put that. That's good. All right, mate. Well, you have a good night. And again, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Oh, I love doing this, Dave, and I hope those people that really need some advice have got something out of this. But please, the most important thing is, you never give up. There's always a way out. It's never the end. So it's very important to keep the perspective, what it is that we're looking at, what's the worst that can happen, and the best that can happen. So if you've got a plan, sometimes it doesn't work out exactly as we want, but you have a far better chance going in with a plan. Good advice. And as you say, when you're in that dark spot of stressed out or whatever like that, it is hard to think clearly. There's no question of that. It is very hard, and that compounds the stress. So it's ironic, but it's like that. Our brain's not going to do it on its own, It
needs a bit of help,
It needs a bit of help. So we always say it's the mind over the brain. So the mind is what we call that ourselves, I suppose, whatever makes us, me, I, and the brain is just a physical organ. It just responds in a certain way. It's almost like a machine. So, the motor of your car will respond depending on how much you accelerate, but you have control of that motor. You decide when you're going to accelerate, when not. And so it's difficult sometimes to think of oneself in that dual type aspect where I am managing myself. But if you can grasp that, it makes things a lot easier because now you are in control of your own action, your own thoughts, and things start becoming a little bit easier.
Good advice. Good on you. Well, you have a good night, as I say, and thank you so much again for your time, Carlos.
No worries, Dave.
Good on you.
Thanks very much. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Bye. That's Carlos Camacho, and our resident neighbourhood psychologist. Good advice there.